Welcome to the Oakley Podcast, Trucking, Business, and Family. This show is brought to you by Oakley Trucking, headquartered in North Little Rock, Arkansas. The purpose of this podcast is to communicate with Oakley owner-operators and their families by giving them up-to-date information concerning Oakley Trucking and the trucking industry, from business advice to safety updates to success stories. Also to give an insight to outside truck drivers that might be interested in joining the Oakley family. Hi, I'm Jeremy Kellett, Director of Recruiting here at Oakley Trucking, and I'm your host for this podcast. Appreciate all you listeners tuning back into us to hear another podcast. This is our episode number 5, so we're getting a little bit better as we go. We sure enjoy doing it. Just to reiterate, this podcast is for our owner-operators and their families. This is the main purpose. We want to get you guys some information about Oakley, what's going on inside the office, and what we're thinking. And we're using this as a platform to communicate with you a little bit better than we have in the past. So I hope it helps. Appreciate y'all listening, giving us feedback. Plus, I want to talk about last week's episode, Todd, that had the coronavirus. And if you hadn't listened to that episode, you need to go back and listen to it. It was really good and get an idea of what he went through having it. I called him yesterday to get an update from him, and he's loving life. He's back in the house. Everything's good. He said he had a list of honeydews he's got to do, a mile long. Still going to be a week or two before he gets out and actually goes back to work. But I wanted to let everybody know he's doing great and appreciates all the attention and appreciate you guys calling and wanting to help him too. So thank you for that. And good to have you back, Todd, and everything's okay. I did hear of one owner-operator that we had. His wife has got the virus, but doing pretty good. Matter of fact, he said, I called him, and he said she is about over the hump. Everything's looking good. She was an RN at the hospital in Memphis. So prayers go out to her, but everything's looking good for him. Everything's good. We had one other guy, I tell you, I think I forgot to mention this last time, but Eddie Gentry is one of our great owner-operators and just a fun guy. And he had an accident, a motorcycle accident a couple of weeks ago, and had some brain bruising, brain problems, but it seems to be coming out of it. We get an update from his wife every day, and he seems to be doing a lot better. There for a while, it was a little shaky there in the beginning, but now he's doing a lot better. So I want to kind of give y'all an update on what's going on here, things that I know, with some people that need our thoughts and prayers. This podcast, let's get to this podcast because I want to cover some information, and I bring in another expert to help us cover this information. But Randy Rymel is with me today, and we're going to talk about this CSA pay and how safety affects, and your decisions that you make every day affects the CSA safety pay that Oakley pays its owner-operators, and we'll go into detail on that a little bit too. But I want to introduce Randy Rymel here. He's been with us for quite a while. I'll let him introduce himself. He'll do a better job than me. Hey, Randy, what's going on? You doing all right?
I'm good, Jeremy. Thank you for having me today.
You bet.
Well, just brief history there. Been in trucking since the late 70s, been a driver, worked in safety orientation. Been here at Oakley for 12 years now as a safety manager and worked in orientation here, and just trying to pass along some information that's helpful to the guys out there. I get to thinking about the times that have gone by in the past and how it would be so helpful for me in those days. We were kind of learning a lot of the things that we know about more today, but I just try to do my best to pass along some information that's helpful.
Well, that's good. You got a lot of experience. And I don't know how you've done all that, and you're only 29 years old.
That's just that's the Geritol there.
Yeah. No, good. I know. I can't believe it's been 12 years already passed by, but it's great working with you. I always have respected the job you've done in safety and admired what you do, and you're a real good communicator and stuff. Mm-hmm. What are we going to talk about today? I mean, I know we want to talk about this CSA. How do you want to start this out? What do you think? There's dive into it, or?
Yeah, there is an awful lot to say about the CSA program, and again, I think back on years gone by that there was a similar program to this, but through the government. But when all of the write-ups and things that took place out there on the roadside inspections, all of those points are or all of that history actually got recorded toward the carrier. The driver didn't share any of those points. And everybody seemed to think that was a little bit unfair because the carriers can't really be with the driver there. When he wakes up in the rest area, is he actually doing that pre-trip inspection before he leaves? So this program, the CSA program, will help to share some of that responsibility, I guess is a good word for that the drivers are mindful, and they are, in fact, doing that inspection pre-trip, making sure that all the lights are working, the tires are good, and everything's in good shape. One of the things that years of flatbedding has taught me is the fact that every time you stop that truck, you need to look at that piece of equipment and see what's changed.
Right.
As most of the drivers well know, that in flatbedding, you've got wood pieces and dunnage, and you've got chains and straps that can break or shift. You get on your brakes a little too hard going through heavy traffic, and every time you wonder what happened.
Right.
So, and that was good training for me, though, because it taught me to look at that piece of equipment all the time, constantly be monitoring that.
Pay attention to details a little bit better.
Absolutely.
Well, you know,
Yes.
you remember CSA 2010. Remember when that was a big deal, CSA 2010? And I remember them working on it a couple of years before they came out with this CSA, and we were preparing to tackle it. And I can remember doing running PSPs at the truck show. We'd go to Louisville Truck Show, and we just started running. Everybody that was interested in Oakley, we'd run their PSP. And I'm telling you, that was a big hit. We had people lined up to see their PSP and we did it for years, and people just didn't understand, why would I get tagged for that when it's their trailer, that kind of stuff, which I know we'll get into, but it just made me think of CSA 2010, and we started running PSPs for everybody, and it's just evolved into now. I mean, it's an everyday deal that we deal with all the time.
Absolutely. Yes. And a lot of times drivers get very busy, and the police stops them out there and says, "Hey, man, you got a tail light out." And he's like, "Oh, okay, I'll get it fixed." Well, this kind of brings it to the surface a little bit more, that the driver needs to be a little bit more aware of what's going on with that piece of equipment. And we all know that from time to time a tail light can go out just going down the highway, and there's really not a whole lot a driver can do about things like that. But one of the things that he can do is constantly monitor that piece of equipment. So when he does stop, instead of doing just a pre-trip inspection at the beginning of the day, every time he stops the truck, he can check those things. And that's one of the best ways to avoid these write-ups.
Are you seeing that happen a lot? I mean, with our guys now, since we put in, which we need to talk about this structure, the CSA pay structure, but since we put that into effect, a few years ago?
Yes.
Have you seen that the drivers are really paying more attention now that it affects their pay?
I believe you're right. Yes, I think so, because I think they're a little bit more aware of it. And they think, I know I should have been doing that all along, but I was kind of busy, and then I got a little distracted, and I forgot to go back there and look at my tail lights, and I forgot to look at my tires, and so it's easy mistakes for the drivers to make. But I think by having this money out there on the table, I know some of the companies don't offer that, but Oakley does offer that extra money. As long as that driver is very conscientious and working to maintain that equipment, it pays off. The money's there.
All right, so let's give them the details on the money, which I'm sure all of our guys know this, but for somebody out there that don't. So when we hire a guy, when we lease a guy on, his CSA points with Oakley is 0.
That is correct,
because he hadn't had a violation.
Right.
Since he's been with Oakley.
Right.
So no matter what prior violations he has on his PSP with other companies, it doesn't have anything to do with the score he has with Oakley.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Right.
So he starts at 0, and we pay him 25 cents a mile, all miles.
Yes.
Loaded and empty miles.
Dispatched miles.
And so you're starting at 25 cents a mile and 0 points with Oakley when you first haul your first load. So
exactly,
he has to lose that. I mean, he's going to lose that. He makes mistakes or gets written up for violations, and he's going to lose that.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, not the whole thing. So
no, only a portion of it, depending upon his points. Depending upon the points. A lot of times, a real quick scenario is for the driver that averages about 100,000 miles a year. That equates to $25,000 that year, extra money that's out there on the table that he has a potential to lose. But again, the driver that's conscientious and doing a good job, he gets to keep that.
Right.
So as long as he's checking his lights and doing all of that.
Well, that'd make me check a lot of things.
I'm telling you, for $25,000, I can stand on top of the building and check my lights if I need to.
I would too. Now, that'd make me pay attention.
But if he does get a roadside inspection or out behind the scales or something like that, then he will accumulate those points. And depending on how many points will depend upon how much of that $25,000 he'll lose. But as Oakley's pay program is structured, 0 points is the 25 cents a mile, 1 to 15 is the 21 cents. And a quick way of looking at this is that nothing but just simply a tail light, a marker light, a cab light, any of the required lights on that truck. If he gets written up for one light, that's going to cost him roughly 4 cents of the 25 cents. And again, just
because he's going to fall into that 1 to 15 point
category,
which is going to pay you 21 cents a mile instead of 25.
Exactly.
Okay, got you.
And by doing all the math on it, again, the guy that averages 100,000 miles times that 4 cents, so he's lost roughly $4,000 of the 25 that was potentially he could have.
Right.
So $4,000 for a marker light or a tail light or any number of little things like this that come along.
Yeah, but come on, Randy. I mean, some of them just go out, and I don't know they go out.
They do.
that's a legitimate deal. I mean,
absolutely, and it is going to happen from time to time. But it all goes back to the fact that the driver that looks at those lights every time he stops, when he loads, unloads, when he's buying fuel, if he will constantly monitor that piece of equipment, he's going to catch that tail light or that marker light that is out and get it replaced then. Doesn't wait till the next day when he gets to the yard, or doesn't wait until this weekend when he gets home. And that's one of the examples I usually tell the guys in orientation about the guy that had a cab light. And he says, well, when I open the hood up on the truck, I don't really feel comfortable standing up on top of that motor trying to fix that cab light up there. That's not really a good place to fall from. And I'm just going to wait till this weekend when I get home, and I'll have a ladder and stuff there, and I can get it fixed then. So in the meantime, are you not going to get written up for the cab light being out?
Boy, it's a big risk to take.
Absolutely. And we're talking some serious money, because it goes back to the 4 cents for that one cab light. You say that's for 100,000 miles that year, so that's $4,000. But those points will stay with the driver for a 3-year period, even though they diminish in value as each year goes by. But at the end of those 3, they'll disappear. But he still maintains points for the whole 3-year period. So during the course of all of that 3 years, he's looking at like somewhere near $12,000 over that 3-year period.
So the key here is preventive maintenance.
Absolutely.
I mean, okay, so what about the guy that's got points? Unfortunately, got some points over here with Oakley, and now he's trying to get them off. What does he have? What can he do to try to get those points to go down and him get a raise, basically?
Again, just constantly monitor that piece of equipment. Look at those lights every time he stops and gets out. And then when he does find a marker light that's out, or a tail light, or a mud flap that's missing, or a headlight that's out, anything along those lines, to get it fixed immediately. Don't wait until tomorrow when I get to the yard, or this weekend when I get home. Stop what you're doing. I know you're in a hurry, and I know your ELD machine's ticking off the time, but stop what you're doing, get the light fixed, and then go on down the road. You're going to be money ahead by doing it that way instead of that procrastination that we're all used to.
No, not us. Surely not.
I know. You wouldn't think that of a truck driver, but I know it really does happen.
I do it too. I'll tell you, I'm bad about it too. But it would have to, you'd have to create some good habits.
Absolutely.
You just have to change the way you do things. And when you're talking this kind of money, you sure want to pay attention, because I bet you they pay a lot closer attention once they lose it. You
Yes.
know it's going to make people mad when they get a light out and they're going to lose some money. I mean, that's going to hit the pocketbook and get them aggravated too. It would me.
Absolutely.
But I guess at that point, a lot of times they really start paying attention then.
Yes. Well, and again, it brings all this to surface, and it brings it home to the driver. It's like, man, that is my money. That's my money. And after all, the whole purpose for these guys being out there working is for the money.
Well, sure.
That's the reason, and there's a lot of our drivers that take a lot of pride in what they do, and these are good hands. I'm talking about good drivers.
I'll tell you, we're blessed with a bunch of good owner-operators, and that's one of the reasons we put this thing into place, years ago, is because we knew we were leasing on good owner-operators, smart guys. We had a bunch of them, and this would just help us even further, and it's helped.
Absolutely.
Our safety scores with the FMCSA scores, have gone down and have really looked good. So, we were at that point of, look, we're going to have to get a hold of this and get our owner operators to do this stuff for us, and it helps, lower our score with the FMCSA. So, I mean, it got us out of a little danger zone there.
That's right.
For a while.
As a carrier, the quick and easy method for scoring us is with a traffic light type of a symbol, the red, yellow, and the green. And right now, all of our CSA scores, all of our categories are all green.
That's awesome.
We are all good. Of course, again, it goes back to the drivers that have gotten some of these points, and they've recognized how important it is and how much money they're losing. So they work a little harder in order to make sure that every time they get those inspections out behind the scales, it's a clean inspection.
So
now.
what are some of the common ones that you see all the time? Give us some examples of what you see all the time, that violations that guys get that could be prevented, probably.
Right. Well,
they all could be, but
exactly. The number one problem that we see the most often out of all of our CSA categories is speeding.
Come on.
Yeah, I know it. I knew you wouldn't believe it. But
speeding?
It really is. And here's one of the mindsets the drivers have, and part of it is correct, but it doesn't always mean that you're going to encounter that good policeman out there. He might just happen to be having a bad day today. But a lot of times drivers look at the speed limit sign and they say, well, it's 65 miles an hour. Well, they'll give me 5 miles an hour. So if I'm running 70, most of the time they won't say anything. And most of the time that's probably true. So the guys get comfortable with that. And then when they get to running 70, well, I can do 70. It's 65 zone here. So I'm in a little bit of a hurry. So here he is. He's doing 72 now. And maybe this guy's having a bad day and he just turned loose a truck a little while ago that didn't turn out real good. So he's like, man, you guys have got to learn to slow down. So I'm going to make an example. So he stops the guy. Here he is. He's doing 72 and a 65, and he writes him up for it. The 6 to 10 mile per hour over the limit, that category is the most common one that we see.
Speeding. That's
speeding.
Slow down, guys.
Absolutely.
I mean, I guess you're constantly preaching that, to slow down, because you see that. I mean, I hate to say it, but I know most people speed. I mean, it's just
it's a habit.
It's a bad habit to get into too.
And they allow the log machine, the ELD. They're thinking, well, my clock's ticking. I need to hurry up just a little bit, and so now they're up to 72 or 73 miles an hour in that 65. And I try to tell everybody, don't let that ELD machine dictate how you drive.
What's the next couple ones? I mean, speeding is obviously sounds like the most common. What are some other ones that you see all the time?
Tires and lights. Tires and lights. Lights and tires and lights.
Golly.
I know.
So this is DOTs. I mean, that's their go-to.
Yes.
Always. That's their go-to. Okay.
Always. And then usually that's like a level 2 inspection where it's a visual. They can just simply look at the truck and they say, tires flat, got a flat tire, or the marker light's out, tail light, headlights out. It's real quick visual. They write the guy up for it.
So the whole key to this is don't get stopped.
Well, no, it's not don't get stopped. The key is that every opportunity that you get, when you're loading, unloading, you stop at the rest area, take a little break or something, check that piece of equipment. Check that piece of equipment.
Well, and I actually meant that as you don't want to get stopped, so you need your stuff looking good.
Absolutely.
And operating good, and you don't have to worry about getting violations because
right.
I'm sure these DOT guys, they're gonna point out you look like you're guilty.
Yeah.
They're gonna find something wrong with it. But you operate a piece of equipment that's looking sharp and good and clean, and you keep it looking good.
You bet.
That takes a lot. You might not get picked, I guess is what I was meaning.
That's right. Yeah. And it's a visual observance on the officer's part. If that thing's got grease dripping off of the fuel tanks and it hadn't had a bath in a long time, you got one marker light out, he is going to pick that thing to death trying to find something else wrong with it. And chances are he'll probably find air leaks. Is another one that's very common. The air leaks, the flat tires, the lights, and I know we've had some little controversy over some of the air leaks because the drivers are saying, well, the officer does an inspection. He wants me to sit there and hold the brake pedal down while he's back there checking on air leaks. Well, I can't do that in my pre-trip inspection because I can't sit there and hold the brake pedal and be listening for air leaks at the end of the trailer. I can't be in two places at one time. We had the same problem years ago, back in the 70s and 80s. We had the same little old rubber diaphragms that were leaking back in those days, and we wound up, a lot of us did, I know some of the guys that I trucked with a broomstick or a little old stick to hold the brake pedal down and wedge it up underneath the steering wheel while we got out and did the listening for the air brakes.
There you go.
So little things like that the drivers can do, but again, it's all about looking at that piece of equipment and listening to it. A truck driver needs to be about 50% mechanic.
Isn't that the truth?
He needs to have a good understanding of how the electrical and the brakes and the air lines and things like that all work, so that he can identify problems,
right,
and catch things that are early on, so that he's like, yeah, I know that airline's leaking, but I can't fix it right now, but that should be at the top of the priority list.
We constantly preach to dispatch. I know you do too. I mean, if a guy's got a problem, we got to get it fixed. And that's a hard deal because we want to try to get them back in here to get it fixed. And do you see that being an issue sometimes between dispatch and the driver of, hey, he wants to get it back in there to get it fixed, but I don't want to get, stopped and get this violation? What are we doing about that?
It is a balancing act for that dispatcher. He's got a piece of equipment out there that needs some repairs. The driver has informed him about a tire or an oil seal or brakes or some problem, and he's trying to balance the picking up and delivering the freight and keeping the equipment up at the same time. So sometimes one or the other will win out. And I would like to try and convince that driver and the dispatcher that by far, I know that customer is important, but we have got to think about that equipment too, because when the driver gets CSA points, so does Oakley. The company gets CSA points also. So, and it keeps makes our score look bad. It makes our company look bad. And I know it's a difficult call for that dispatcher to try and juggle that between there. But I really think that the dispatchers here in the last few years have done a much better job of it. Right. I know in the years past, it's like, well, we're going to deliver the freight and we can fix trucks some other time.
Right.
But I think that trend has changed.
Well, I think you go, now, I mean, you go with what the driver says, the owner operator. I mean, he's the one that's going to, I know in sitting in dispatch seat, they're going to go with most of the time what he recommends, because he'll say, hey, I don't think it's bad enough that if you get me back there this week to the shop, we can get it fixed or whatever. Or he'll say, look, now this needs to be done right now. We're talking if I get stopped, it's definitely going to be a write-up. So a lot of times you go with what the owner-operator I mean, because he's looking at it, he's seeing it, he knows whether, a tire is close or that kind of deal. So
he's the one with the hands on the wheel. He's right there. He can put the eyeball on it and share that with the dispatcher and kind of prioritize there a little bit to let him know, like you said, is it something that we can wait a day or two on, or is this a must?
I didn't look this up, Randy, but we were talking about it. How many of our 880 owner operators have a 0 score, have no violations? Did you look that up?
I did. And I'll tell you, I enjoy reporting that a little over 65%, in other words, right around that 600 number, has 0 CSA points.
That's awesome.
Yes. Absolutely. Out of that 800 and something, there's about 600 of our drivers that have 0 CSA points. And I talk to these guys. They bring those inspection reports in, and I visit with them from time to time, the owner-operators. And it's like, well, it's not my fault, and there's not anything I could do about it. And I don't know how you can get this truck up and down the highway without getting written up for these inspections every once in a while. And I said, well, you really got to pay attention, because there's a whole bunch of Oakley drivers out there. They manage to get around all week after week, and they get inspections, but they have 0 points.
That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't realize it would be that many, but you're talking over 600 that has no points. They're taking care of business.
That's right.
They're doing things that like you're saying, they're being particular and watching that stuff close every time they get out and look around.
Absolutely. I see some of these guys from time to time when I visit with them, and their thinking is a little bit along the lines of their personal car, because a lot of us, we take that for granted. We get in it, we poke the key in there, crank it up, and drive down the road, and then when we get out, we just leave it and go about our business. With that big truck, this is your work. This is your job. You have got to pay close attention to it. I try to impress on the guys there in orientation about you've got to have that mindset of, I'm at work now, so I really have to pay attention to my work. And looking for taillights and air leaks and problems with tires and things like that, that's a constant battle. And as long as that truck's moving, it's going to require maintenance. And it's going to be a constant everyday thing. So the driver just has to create those good habits so that every time he gets out of the truck, he looks at that piece of equipment to see, what does it need this time? Yeah.
Yeah, they got to create those habits.
Mm-hmm.
Well, good, man. I appreciate all the information. That's good stuff right there that our owner operators, I think, will enjoy listening to, and maybe can learn something out of it. I know I did. I always learn something when I talk to you. How's that happen?
I don't know.
You're full of wisdom over there.
Yeah, wisdom. I wouldn't use that word, but one of the things I would like to do is I just want to say thank you. I know from driving trucks over the years and with all this pandemic and the virus and stuff that's going on, I know the guys that are out there are really struggling a lot of times. They go into places to get something to eat, and it's difficult for them. It's hard for them to get showers in places, and yet they figure out ways to keep on trucking. And I just want to say thank you, guys, for all that you do for us.
I appreciate that too. That's good. I say the same thing. They're really good, and I appreciate you guys listening to us. Thank you for what you do, getting through this tough time, and be sure and share this with some people and get the word out there. I'd like for all of our owner operators to get to where they listen to this podcast, because we're going to use it in the future to communicate with you on things just like safety. So send us an email if you got questions, and I'll try to come back and maybe get Randy to answer them, and I can read them on the next podcast. You guys got questions for Randy Rymel in the safety department. He spent a lot of time with us today, so I appreciate that. And call him with your questions or email me, and we look forward to answering them. Appreciate you hanging with me, Randy.
You bet. Thank you, Jeremy, for having me.
We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Oakley Podcast, Trucking, Business, and Family. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate or review the show in the podcast platform of your choice and share it with a friend. We love hearing from our audience, so if you've got a question, comment, or just want to say hello, head over to our website, theoakleypodcast.com, and click the Leave a Comment button. We'll get you a response soon and may even share some of the best ones here on the show. We'll be back with a fresh episode very soon. Thanks for listening.